In my family, I've always been the one carrying the weight. Ever since I landed my first real job, my paycheck wasn't for me, it became everyone else's safety net. They got so used to leaning on me, they forgot I was human too. This year, I truly hoped Christmas would be different. They told me, "We're too broke to get together. Let's just cancel it." And like a fool, I believed them. Until one night scrolling through Instagram, I stumbled upon photos of an extravagant party champagne, a live DJ, and worst of all, a celebration they didn't want me at. A party funded by the very money I'd been sending them all year. And there I was, alone eating reheated leftovers on Christmas, finally realizing I was never really part of that family. Before we dive into today's dramatic and unexpected story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. And leave a comment to let us know where you're watching from. Now let's follow this bitter, calculating tale filled with shocking twists that will leave everyone speechless. I am Olivia Harper, 34, the steady anchor in a family adrift on turbulent seas. From my earliest memories in the quiet suburbs of Madison, Wisconsin, I've been the one who plans, saves, and sacrifices. My father, Daniel Harper, 58, a car salesman with a smile that could sell rust to a skeptic, hid a gambling addiction behind his charm. My mother, Margaret, 56, a part-time librarian, wove intricate excuses for his reckless bets, her voice soft but resolute. My younger brother, Ethan, 29, inherited Daniel's hunger for thrills, chasing fleeting highs with no regard for consequence. They lived for the rush while I built barricades against chaos, hoarding pennies from lemonade stands, babysitting gigs, and late-night shifts at the local diner. By 19, I'd saved enough to fund my first year at the University of Chicago, where I majored in finance on a partial scholarship, balancing coursework with 2 jobs, barista by day, tutor by night. I graduated magna cum laude. Chicago became my sanctuary, a city of sharp edges and endless possibility where I carved a life distinct from the Harpers' instability. At the age of 25, my hard work yielded a job at a boutique investment firm. By the time I was 28, I was managing multi-million-dollar portfolios, and by the time I was 32, I was working at an elite wealth management agency, earning a 6-figure salary, full benefits, and the rare luxury of work-life balance. I bought a stylish condo in the Gold Coast with floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the restless waves of Lake Michigan. My 401k flourished, my emergency fund could last for 8 months, and I even indulged in small luxuries like a vintage watch and a monthly spa day. However, while my life was taking off, my family's finances were falling into chaos. Daniel's gambling spiraled after a brief run of wins convinced him he had figured out the code. Margaret remortgaged their house twice to pay off his debts. And Ethan, after dropping out of trade school, cycled through dead-end jobs, his bank account constantly overdrawn from impulsive purchases, leather jackets, concert tickets, and gadgets he'd abandon within weeks. Margaret's car broke down. Daniel needed $1,200 for a promising business venture, and Ethan faced eviction from his dilapidated studio apartment. Each crisis came with promises of repayment and hollow promises. And by the time I was 24, I was their unofficial financier, sending money for their mortgage, utilities, and medical bills. Daniel would say, full of unwavering confidence, "Just until we're back on our feet." Margaret was blunter. "Family takes care of family, Olivia." Ethan, always entitled, laughed at my thrift, saying, "You're sitting on all that cash. Why not share the love?" Holiday parties fell firmly on my shoulders. I would return to Madison each Thanksgiving and Christmas with an armful of presents, paying for extravagant dinners, grocery shopping, and even gas for their cars. I turned down invitations to New Year's parties and skipped tropical vacations with friends because I felt that the Harpers needed me. Last Christmas epitomized their dependence. I spent $2,500 orchestrating their celebration, a roasted duck feast with all the trimmings, curated gifts for each professional decorators to transform their dated ranch house into a winter wonderland. Daniel sipped the aged bourbon I'd gifted, pitching his latest scheme to become wealthy quickly. Margaret paraded her new jewelry to neighbors, claiming credit for the selection. Ethan sulked that his smartwatch wasn't the top-tier model he'd coveted. By New Year's, I was drained, my bank account lighter and my spirit heavier. My therapist, Dr. Clara Vance, urged me to set boundaries. My financial advisor, Priya, suggested formalizing loans and scaling back aid. My best friend, Lauren, was mercilessly candid. "They're bleeding you dry, Liv. Wake up." I resolved to change, but cautiously. In March, I held a tense Zoom call with my family. "I love you all," I said, my voice measured, "but I can't be your safety net forever. I'll help with true emergencies, but the monthly handouts stop now." Daniel's jaw tightened. Margaret's eyes welled, and Ethan sneered. "What's next? You're too good for us." Margaret's voice broke. "Olivia, where are you? Loyal. This isn't about loyalty, it's about survival, mine included," I steadfastly said. The call ended in icy silence. I tapered my transfers over the spring and summer, urging them to seek financial counseling. Daniel dismissed it as nonsense. Margaret nodded but never followed through, and Ethan blocked me on social media for a month before resurfacing when his auto insurance lapsed. By October, I suggested a low-key Christmas, saying, "Let's keep it simple this year, potluck, homemade gifts." Margaret agreed, her tone tired. "Times are hard for everyone, dear." For the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps they were finally seeing reason. I loved them fiercely despite their flaws. All I wanted was mutual respect, a family that valued me beyond my checkbook. Unbeknownst to me, they were crafting a falsehood that would irreversibly erode my trust. On December 10th, the family group chat, usually a chaotic mix of Ethan's memes and Margaret's forwarded prayers, erupted with a bombshell. Daniel typed, "With heavy hearts, your mother and I must cancel Christmas this year. We're flat broke. Better to hold our heads high than fake a celebration we can't afford." Margaret followed, "We're so sorry, girls. The economy's crushed your father's sales. We'd never do this unless we had no choice." Ethan chimed in, "This sucks. Christmas is my vibe. I'm gutted." I stared at my phone mid-morning in my office, a client report half finished on my screen. Something felt staged, but I couldn't pinpoint why. "I can help," I replied. "Nothing fancy, just food." "A few gifts," Daniel shot back. "No way, Olivia." "We're not your charity case," Margaret added. "We need our pride, sweetheart. We'll celebrate properly next year." Ethan typed, "I'll probably pick up extra hours at the bar." Whatever, a storm of emotions churned within me. Relief at avoiding another costly holiday, guilt for that relief, sorrow over a fractured tradition, suspicion at their sudden resolve to stand alone. I contacted Margaret that night and said, "Are you certain I can't bring something? Could you provide a small meal?" I pressed her, saying, "This is what I've been asking for, you taking responsibility." "Well, he's listening now," she said, her voice tinged with resignation. "We'll miss you, but it's for the best." Her sigh crackled through the line. "Oh, Olivia, always our rock. No, dear, your father's adamant, we must stand on our own." Daniel had never refused my help, and his subtle hints, such as mentions of overdue bills and sighs about tough times, always prompted my offers. However, I was now held back by pride. Even though it didn't add up, I nonetheless complied with their requests. On December 14th, I went shopping for little presents such as a cashmere shawl for Margaret, a monogrammed planner for Daniel, and a bookstore gift card for Ethan. I also made decorations, cooked gingerbread, and bottled mulled wine, and I planned a short drop-off. With gifts piled in my passenger seat, I traveled to Madison on December 22nd. An hour later, I texted, "Surprise, I am just dropping off holiday cheer and won't stay if you are busy." Their responses came quickly. Daniel, at a last-minute car lot event. Margaret running errands, pharmacy pickup. Ethan covering a shift. Rent doesn't pay itself. I looked at our family's location app and found that all three of them were at home. My stomach turned and I thought about confronting them, but my fear overcame my bravery. So I returned to Chicago, leaving the gifts unopened, the 90-minute drive, a silent remembrance for my inexperience. Turned down Lauren's invitation to her family's dinner on Christmas Eve, believing my family's story of hardship. I stayed in my condo by myself, strung lights, set up a 4-foot spruce, and tried to get into the spirit of the holidays. My group text said, "Merry Christmas Eve, Love you all. Are you available for a video call tomorrow? I brewed cocoa cued. It's a wonderful life, wrapped myself in a quilt, and received a heart emoji from Margaret. However, the lack of connection hurt like a bruise. By 8:30 p.m., I reheated pad thai and browsed Instagram to distract myself from the loneliness. Friends shared pictures of happy get-togethers, sparkling trees, and laughter, and I felt like a ghost haunting my life. A message at 10:42 p.m. startled me, alerting me to Ethan Harper, 88's live stream. Ethan seldom streamed, and his feed featured a carefully chosen collection of specialty beers and gym photos. There was even a live video on Christmas Eve when he was purportedly working nonstop at the bar. Curiosity drew me in. As the video loaded, I saw Ethan's eyes glassy from drinking. His face flushed and smiling, saying, "Yo, this is the Christmas Eve party of the century," he yelled, panning the camera, and I gasped. The scene was not a bar or his small apartment, but my parents' completely transformed living room. Draped in golden lights, a tall 8-foot fur glistened with ornaments I had never seen before. Trays filled to overflowing with canapés, shrimp and petit fours. A bartender in a tuxedo poured Prosecco. Dozens of guests danced, laughed, and clinked glasses. Daniel's poker buddies, Margaret's knitting circle, Ethan's bar friends, and even our cousin Lila, who had flown from Seattle according to Ethan's caption, "Lila's here for the Harper holiday blowout. Well worth the money." I recognized the new furniture, which included a marble coffee table and a plush velvet sofa. Margaret was wearing a sequined dress with freshly dyed hair, and Daniel was wearing a fitted blazer. The scene was lavish, well-planned, and costly. Then Ethan's friend blurted into the camera, "How'd you pull this off, man? This guy is crazy." Daniel showed up with an arm around Ethan and said, "To the best Christmas ever, and to Olivia, too busy to notice." Ethan chuckled and put a finger to his lips. "Shh, don't tell Olivia. She thinks we're broke." Their laughter pierced my chest like a knife, and I stopped the film, taking screenshots of every frame while my hands trembled. "It's a wonderful life," continued to ramble on George Bailey's voice, a terrible irony against my treachery. I sat with my phone in my hand as midnight drew closer. The snow outside grew thicker, shrouding Chicago in silence. The lights in my condo blinked, mocking my loneliness, but instead of tears, a glacial clarity settled. I'd been their fool, supporting their lives while they belittled my trust. I saved Ethan's video, saved texts, and opened my banking app. The numbers revealed a harsh reality: $42, $300 sent to them in 2024, alone $3,000 a month for their mortgage, $500 every 2 weeks for Ethan's job training or utilities, auto payments, and medical copays. Each transfer was a brick in their deceit. I gazed at the group chat, their lies gleaming. "We're too broke." "Save our dignity." "Extra shift." "We're too broke." "Extra shift," and so on. They hadn't wanted me. They wanted a gala funded by my labor without the burden of my presence. As Christmas Day broke, I vowed that this would be my last holiday as their ATM. The question wasn't if I would walk away, but how. Little did I know that the universe would soon hand me the perfect moment to sever their hold, starting a drama that would redefine my life. At 11:58 p.m., I stood at my window, forehead against the cold glass, and the city sparkled, indifferent to my unraveling. I cataloged my emotions: betrayal, rage, grief, and humiliation, each a shard in my chest, but beneath them, a whisper of relief. Christmas morning was cruelly bright, with sunlight bouncing off fresh snow like 1,000 tiny knives. My condo, which had once been a haven, felt like a stage for my loneliness, with the twinkling lights and modest spruce mocking my isolation. The revelation of the night: Ethan's Instagram live, my family's laughter at my expense, and their extravagant party funded by my years of sacrifice, kept me wired, replaying every detail. By dawn, my coffee was bitter and my eyes burned, but my resolve hardened like ice. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a theft of trust, love, and the family I'd believed in. I stood at my kitchen counter, holding my mug, while the city woke below, dog walkers trudging through the snow, their breath puffing in the cold, while I faced a day robbed of tradition and connection. My phone rang at 7:12 a.m., breaking the stillness. Daniel texted me, "Merry Christmas, Liv. I hope you're indulging yourself today. I just had a quick question. Could you please send $200 for January's mortgage property? Folks want it early for the holiday." My hand shook, almost dropping the mug. Not a word about my lonely Christmas, not a trace of regret for their deceit. Just another demand as casual as asking for a cup of sugar, $4, $200, for a mortgage I already propped up monthly. The audacity ignited something primal, a fury that burned through the fog of guilt, and I saw it clearly now. They would never stop, not unless I forced an end. This was my moment, the spark to reclaim my life. I put the mug down, my fingers steady in spite of the storm in my chest, and typed, "Lose my number. I don't fund liars." I then blocked Daniel's contact phone, email, social media, and payment apps all in one swipe. Next, I blocked Margaret, whose heart emoji from the previous night was now a hollow gesture. I blocked Ethan and cut off my aunts, uncles, and cousins who had danced at their gala. My digital world shrank, a fortress rising around my resources, and I logged into my banking app, canceling every scheduled transfer, $3,000 monthly. To their mortgage, $500 bi-weekly. To Ethan's career fund, utilities, and insurance, all stopped. I changed passwords, set fraud alerts, and by 9:30 a.m., my financial advisor, Priya, received an email, despite the holiday, asking for an urgent meeting to protect my assets. After 2 hours, I'd secured my accounts and seized control of my wealth. A cousin's Facebook message read, "Your parents are frantic. Reach out." A voicemail from an unknown number, "Uncle Thomas. Liv. Whatever's going on, talk to your folks. They're losing it." A LinkedIn message that said, "Olivia, it's Dad. Emergency. Call me." A Venmo request for $4, $200 that said, "Don't be petty. Family helps family." And a voicemail from an unidentified number, "Your parents are frantic. Reach out." All of the messages focused on their panic, not my pain, and none of them asked if I was okay, if I'd spent Christmas alone, or if I'd witnessed their betrayal unfold live on my screen. I blocked each new attempt, reported payment requests as harassment, and forwarded emails to spam. And my phone became a battlefield, but I was done giving up. Marcus, the concierge for my building, called at 6:58 p.m., saying, "Ms. Harper, Ethan Harper is here. He says he's your brother, urgent matter." My heart raced, but I calmed myself and said, "Marcus, I'm not seeing visitors, especially not him. Ask him to leave." "He's persistent, ma'am," Marcus said, and I let out a breath. "Then be more persistent. Remind him this is private property and you can call the police for trespassing." Marcus sent a text with a picture of a note that Ethan had left 30 minutes later, asking, "Liv, could you please clarify your position?" I saved the note, another piece of evidence, then made a simple dinner, grilled chicken and steamed broccoli, and watched The Big Lebowski, its ridiculousness a balm against the chaos of the day. For the first time, I felt the weight of control, my life no longer a prop for their performance. "You're being extremely selfish. Mom and Dad can't afford to pay the rent without you. Whatever we did, get over it. Call us. This isn't a game." By nightfall, my phone displayed 62 missed calls and 19 voicemails. At 8:15 p.m., I listened to the most recent one from Margaret, who said in a frail voice, "Olivia, please call. We need you." I deleted it, turned off my phone, and went to bed deeply because the relief of severance outweighed the pain of loss. On December 27th, I returned to work with a razor-sharp focus on year-end reports. Colleagues noticed, "Liv's got that holiday fire." And my boss, Greg, teased, "If only he knew the fire was fueled by betrayal, not cheer." My phone buzzed with new attempts, old classmates, distant relatives, all repeating the Harper's story. Olivia's unreasonable, Olivia's abandoned her family. I stayed silent, letting their story spin without my response. The escalation occurred on December 30th. A bank alert revealed an attempted wire transfer of $5,000 from my checking account, a sum that only Daniel would be aware of. Despite my new security measures blocking it, it was still illegal, and a brazen attempt to seize what they believed they were entitled to. I filed a police report, not to punish, but to record the incident. The officer, a weary man named Jenkins, shifted uneasily, saying, "Family stuff is messy. Have you considered trying meditation?" As I laid out years of transfers, lies, and now this attempted theft, he nodded and scribbled notes. "This isn't a dispute," I said in a calm but firm voice. "It's exploitation. I'm building a record." New Year's Eve arrived, and I celebrated 2025 by myself, sipping champagne on my balcony while watching the waves of Lake Michigan sparkle under the fireworks. My resolutions were straightforward: protect my peace, build my future, and never again allow guilt to tie me to their chaos. Their long-subsidized mortgage fell into arrears. Their utilities in my name went past due. Ethan's rent, auto insurance, and credit card bills all went into default, and I received desperate messages like, "They're cutting our heat," "Dad's meds are out," and "I'm facing eviction." All these situations were intended to penetrate my defenses, yet I resisted. I began therapy with Dr. Elena Torres, a specialist in family estrangement, who listened to me as I described the Christmas betrayal. Her eyes warm but unflinching, and she said, "This is financial abuse. Family makes it harder to see, but it's no less real. They're struggling because of me." She shook her head. "They're struggling because of their choices. You're not their savior. You're their scapegoat." And we scheduled weekly sessions to figure out why I'd allowed this to continue for so long. A public incident occurred in mid-January when Ethan barged into my office lobby and yelled about family treachery until security drove him out. Greg summoned me, and his face contorted. "Everything okay, Liv?" I exhaled, choosing to be honest, and said, "Family issues. I'm setting financial boundaries. Sorry for the disruption." He nodded. "Been there, different flavor, same mess. Take whatever time you need." His support helped me stay afloat. I met with a family law specialist, Ms. Karen Wells, who confirmed that you owed them nothing legally, but that their persistence required stronger defenses. I changed my phone number and obtained a P.O. box, blocked my credit, and surrounded my existence with a moat. By February, the attempts at contact had slowed, but the silence was not peace, but rather the quiet before their next move. Lauren informed me that Daniel had taken a second job at a rival dealership, Margaret was now employed full-time, and Ethan had moved to a less expensive apartment. Their independence stirred pride in their growth, sadness in their absence, and anger in their long resistance. Dr. Torres put it this way: "You're grieving the family you wanted, not the one you had." Her words were heavy but true. I was losing a dream, but gaining myself. The drama of their betrayal had shattered my life, revealing facts I could no longer ignore, and as winter's hold tightened, I prepared for their next attempt, knowing the true test of my boundaries was still to come. The heavy snowfall in February covered Chicago in a silence that reflected the stillness that was settling in my soul. My life, which had previously been a tangled web of family demands, now moved with a purposeful rhythm: work, therapy, dinners with Lauren, and book club debates in a quaint cafe near my condo. I volunteered at a nonprofit organization that promotes financial literacy, teaching budgeting to people who, like me, had discovered the cost of unbridled generosity too late. Each step felt like reclaiming ground, but my family's silence wasn't peace. Rather, it was a held breath, a storm building, and I braced myself, knowing that their desperation would soon overwhelm my defenses. My therapist, Dr. Elena Torres, noticed the change in me, saying, "You're carrying less of their weight," with a voice as warm as a fireplace. She leaned over and said, "You're not leaving them, Olivia. You're refusing to drown with them." I nodded and said, "I keep wondering if I'm the monster they're painting me as." Her words gave me a sense of stability, but the agony of alienation throbbed like a bruise. The first break in their quiet came in March when a letter reached my P.O. box, 3 pages of meticulously composed lines in Margaret's well-known calligraphy spread on cream stationery. "We never meant to take advantage," she wrote. "Your success was our pride, our shared joy. Isn't that what family is, lifting each other up?" The final lines begged, "We're struggling, Olivia. We just need a little help until we are steady again." As I read it again, my chest tightened, observing how it evaded responsibility and portrayed my resources as theirs by right. I didn't respond, instead filing it with my screenshots, bank records, and Ethan's note. I almost caved. I admitted, just to stop feeling like their villain. She smiled gently. That's the trap, Olivia. They've made you the villain to avoid facing themselves. Holding your ground now is your victory. I left her office lighter, but the weight of the letter lingered, a ghost of obligation. My job became my haven, and I immersed myself in client portfolios, receiving recognition for my accuracy. Greg, my supervisor, called me aside, encouraging me to stay focused and avoid burnout. I pretended to laugh while concealing the reality that work served as a shield against the family narrative that was circulating through old networks. I received messages from distant cousins saying, "Your parents are heartbroken," and emails from former neighbors saying, "Ethan says you've turned your back on them." The story progressed with Olivia, the cold-hearted daughter, leaving her struggling family behind. Dr. Torres expressed it this way: "They are rewriting history to maintain their entitlement. Your silence is your power. It compels them to confront their choices." I clung to that, but the loneliness got to me. Lauren noticed, bringing me to a comedy club one evening, saying, "You're not alone, Liv. You've got me, your book club nerds, and your work crew. We're your tribe now." Her fierce loyalty warmed me, but I still dreamed of a family that loved me, not my wallet. Ethan sent me an email on my work account, avoiding my personal blocks with the subject line, "You win, now help us." His tone was a combination of desperation and sarcasm. "Congrats, Liv, you've cut us off. Mom's working 40 hours, Dad's hustling 2 jobs, and I'm in a crap apartment. Happy now? We're drowning. Send $5,000 for the mortgage, or we lose the house. Be a sister for once." The email was a gut punch, but it was obviously manipulated. There was no apology or recognition of their lies. It was just a demand wrapped in guilt. I forwarded the email to my lawyer, Karen Wells, who advised me to meticulously document all the details. She advised me to remain resolute. I reported the email as harassment, blocked the address, and included it in my evidence. Dr. Torres assisted me in deciphering it, and she said, "They're not asking for help. They're demanding control. You're breaking a cycle, and they're fighting to keep it." Her words steadied me, but felt like a betrayal. May blossomed with unexpected peace. The contact attempts decreased as if my family sensed my uncompromising boundaries. Through Lauren, I learned that Daniel had sold their second car, Margaret enrolled in a debt counseling program, and Ethan started working night shifts at a warehouse. Their steps toward independence stirred a bittersweet mixed pride. They were trying. Sorrow, it took my absence, and anger they'd resisted for so long. Dr. Torres called it, "You're mourning the family you deserved, but you're also witnessing their capacity to change." That's complex, Olivia. Honor both feelings. I poured my energy into new routes, redecorated my condo, replacing furniture meant for family visits with pieces that spoke to me, vibrant art, a velvet chaise, and a bookshelf for my expanding collection. I took a pottery class, my hands shaping clay into bowls that held my hope. I joined a hiking group, scaling trails along Lake Michigan, my breath synchronized with the waves. But the peace was brittle. In late May, a package arrived at my office with no return address. Inside, I found a photo album with the cover embossed with Harper Family Memories. I opened it expecting nostalgia, but instead I found manipulation pictures of Christmases and Thanksgivings that I had sponsored, each with handwritten notes in Margaret's script. "You made this possible, Olivia." We were so proud, and a new photo of their Christmas Eve party with everyone smiling with the words, "We missed you, but you were with us in spirit. Come home." My stomach churned. It was a masterstroke combining love and guilt, suggesting that my money, not my presence, was their treasure. I showed it to Dr. Torres, and she said, "This is emotional warfare. They're weaponizing your memories. Don't engage. Keep it as evidence." I put it in my files, but the images haunted me. June's warmth spread across Chicago, and I felt myself unfurling. Therapy changed from crisis to exploration, and Dr. Torres helped me understand my childhood role. Olivia, the fixer, the savior. "You learned love meant solving problems," she said, "but real love doesn't demand your depletion." I saw it clearly. My family's affection had always been transactional. Birthday calls, concealed hints for money, and holiday hugs came with expectations. I grieved the love I'd pursued, but I also felt free. I threw a barbecue for Lauren, her partner Sam, and my book club friend Clara, a retired teacher who had dealt with her estrangement. Over hamburgers and lemonade Clara shared. The guilt never vanishes, but it shrinks. It becomes a shadow you nod to, not a chain. Her wisdom grounded me, and I was building a chosen family, one rooted in respect, not obligation. The story reached its climax in mid-June when Margaret unexpectedly showed up in the lobby of my building. Marcus yelled, "Ms., your mother is here, Harper, and she says it's important." My heart was pounding, but I had braced myself against this. "I'll come down, Marcus, but keep security nearby." Margaret appeared smaller in the atrium, her hair grayer, her eyes beseeching Olivia. "My girl, why are you doing this?" I stood back as she stepped toward me and said, "Mom, why are you here?" "You deceived me," I exclaimed. "You exploited me. You ridiculed me. I can no longer serve as your financial support." Her voice faltered. "We're losing everything: the house, our stability. You're our only hope." Tears streamed down her face, but I saw the performance. "We're family, Olivia." "Doesn't that mean anything?" I gave her Dr. Torres's card and said, "It means everything. That's why it hurts so much, but you have to want that too." If you and Dad want to rebuild, start here, no more demands," she said, clutching the card with her face crumpled. "Your father will never agree," I said steadily, "so that's his choice." "And the decision is mine," I said as I left her sobs echoing my heart, broken but whole. As June dwindled, I prepared for the next test, knowing that my family's desperation wouldn't end easily. I was ready: my boundaries, a shield, my chosen family, a fire. The journey was painful, but it was mine, and I was learning to walk it with grace. That night, I sat on my balcony with the skyline of Chicago glowing under a summer moon. The encounter left me raw but proud. I had held my ground with compassion, not rage. Dr. Torres's words reverberated, "You're writing your story now." Every day felt like a step toward a truer self, one no longer bound to my family's demands. Dr. Elena Torres, my guide through this unfamiliar territory, saw the shift, saying, "You're not just surviving, Olivia." Her eyes steady like a calm river. "You're reclaiming your spirit." What does that feel like? The heat of July shrouded Chicago like a warm blanket, the city pulsing with life as I carved deeper into my own. My balcony turned into a haven where I sipped iced tea and watched sailboats dance on Lake Michigan, their sails catching the sun's golden farewell. Her knowledge was a compass helping me navigate the maze of guilt and resolve. I stopped trying to find the right words. Like breathing after being underwater for too long, free but heavy with what I've lost, she said, nodding. Loss and freedom often walk together. Honor both, and you'll find your balance. Work remained my anchor, and I led a high-stakes pitch for a new client, a tech startup with big dreams. Greg clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Liv, you're unstoppable." I smiled, but it felt like a bittersweet victory, because I no longer had to prove my worth to a family that saw me as a resource. Lauren and Sam hosted a rooftop movie night, projecting moonlight against the brick wall of their building, and Clara, my book club mentor, brought her signature lemon tart. We laughed, discussed the film's ending, and exchanged stories under the stars. These moments, free from expectations, filled a void I hadn't named. Clara, sensing my quiet gratitude, squeezed my hand and said, "This is family too, Olivia. The kind that lifts you, not drains you." Her words anchored me and served as a reminder that love could be light. Through mutual connections, August brought rumors of my family's difficulties. Daniel had put their Madison home up for sale because he couldn't pay the mortgage. Margaret had been working extra hours at the library, causing her health to deteriorate. And Ethan had quit his job as a bartender to take a more stable position at a logistics company, but his debts had grown. Lauren cautiously explained this over coffee. "They're trying, Liv, but it's messy. How do you feel about it?" She reached across the table and said, "You're not their god, Liv. You're their daughter, their sister. They made choices. Let them carry the weight." Her fierce clarity cut through my doubt, and I nodded, but the guilt gnawed a shadow I was learning to acknowledge without letting it rule. I stirred my latte, the foam swirling like my emotions. Proud, they're facing reality. Angry, it took this. Sad, they're suffering. Guilty, I could help, but won't, she said. As my therapy progressed, Dr. Torres assisted me in identifying the causes of my savior complex. You were raised to fix Olivia, she said. Your parents leaned on you. Young praised you for solving their chaos. That's a heavy mantle for a child. I recalled nights when I was 12 balancing their checkbook while Daniel gambled away grocery money, Margaret's appreciative hugs when I gave them my babysitting money for bills, and Ethan's thoughtless gratitude when I covered his school supplies. Love was earning their relief. I confessed, my voice thick. I thought if I stopped, they'd stop loving me. Dr. Torres's gaze softened, and her words broke through, causing tears to fall as I grieved the child who had carried too much. I left her office lighter, prepared to rewrite the meaning of love. The crisp September air made me restless, so I enrolled in a photography class and took pictures of Chicago's grit and glow-rusty bridges. Colorful murals, sunrise over the lake. My lens became a way to see myself anew, and each frame told a story of resiliency. I displayed a few prints at a community gallery with Lauren and Clary cheering the loudest at the opening. These are you, Liv, Clara said, pointing to a picture of a lone tree growing in cracked pavement, strong even in hard places. Their pride warmed me in contrast to my family's transactional praise. I also doubled my volunteer hours at the financial literacy program, where I helped a single mother named Tara create a budget to get out of debt. Her tearful gratitude when she paid off her first credit card reflected my own journey. You're giving them what your family never gave you, Dr. Torres said, empowerment, not dependence. I grinned, seeing the parallel. My healing was spreading. October's golden light cast long shadows and brought a new level of escalation. A certified letter from a Madison attorney representing my parents claimed that I had unjustly withheld financial support, citing years of mutual family assistance as proof that I owed them $30,000 to keep their home from going into foreclosure. The legalese was a thin veil of emotional blackmail, and I laughed bitterly before calling my attorney, Karen Wells, who calmly reviewed it and said, "This is baseless, Olivia. They have no legal claim. It's a scare tactic. We'll respond with a cease and desist." We wrote a letter outlining their financial exploitation and my boundaries, and Karen added, "Consider a restraining order if they escalate further." I hesitated, the word restraining sounding like a cold blade, but I filed it away. Dr. Torres assisted me in processing it. I tightened my hands and said, "This is their final stand, Olivia. They're losing control, so they're weaponizing the system. How do they explain this?" After all, she sighed, "Entitlement blinds them. They see your success as theirs, not yours. You're dismantling that illusion." I left her office irate but firm, refusing to back down. That evening, I hosted a dinner for my hiking group, and their laughter filled my condo as we shared trail stories. Their presence grounded me and served as a reminder that I wasn't alone. Lauren stayed late, sensing my tension, and said, "They don't get to define you, Liv," while hugging me. "You're writing a badass story. Don't let them edit it." I laughed. Her fierceness was a spark in my darkness. As the chill of November set in, I found out that Daniel and Margaret had sold their house and moved into a small apartment, and that Ethan had filed for bankruptcy due to his overwhelming debts. Dr. Torres put it this way: "Their choices are catching up, Olivia. You're not their punishment. You're their mirror, showing what they could have chosen sooner." I nodded, but the sadness was heavy because I loved them, and I wanted them to thrive rather than just survive. Clara over tea shared her own story, saying, "My sister cut me off when I stopped paying her way. Years later, she reached out sober and sorry. We're friends now, but it took her hitting bottom. Her optimism helped ease my grief. Perhaps my family could find their way, but I couldn't carry them there." Each act was a reclaiming, a celebration of connection over obligation. However, a final test came when Ethan showed up at my gallery exhibition where my photos hung proudly. Marcus, ever watchful, called, "Mr. May I volunteer at a soup kitchen, host a potluck for my chosen family, and attend a jazz concert with Lauren?" December loomed, my first Christmas with boundaries fully forged. Olivia Harper is here. Would you like me to send him away? I shook my head, saying, No, I'll handle it. Stay close. Ethan appeared worn out, and his confidence had vanished. Liv, he said in a low voice. I screwed up. We all did. I'm sorry. His eyes looked into mine, but I saw the hook. We need $10,000. Mom and Dad are on the street. And I shook my head. I'm sorry you're hurting Ethan, but my answer's no. I love you, but I won't fund you. Try Dr. Torres. She can help you rebuild. I gave him her card and he left silently. My heart ached, but I stood tall, surrounded by my art, my truth. Dr. Torres's words, "You're not just surviving, you're becoming," rang true that night as the skyline of Chicago glittered like a promise, and I toasted myself with mulled wine. The year had been a crucible, burning away illusions and forging a stronger me. I was prepared for the challenges ahead as winter deepened, knowing that the next chapter would test me even more. My fire was kindled, and my story was mine to write. Winter's hold loosened as December's light softened the edges of Chicago, making the city glow with holiday warmth that no longer felt like a taunt. Dr. Elena Torres praised this, her voice, steady like an old oak, saying, "You've rewritten the story, Olivia. You're not their savior anymore. You're you whole and free." What does that freedom taste like? Ethan's gallery visit lingered, his half-hearted apology and desperate plea a fading echo. I'd stood firm, offering love without money, a door cracked open for connection, not obligation. She nodded and said, "That chill is grief. It's okay to feel it. It means you loved deeply." Her words wove serenity into my determination, creating a tapestry of strength and sorrow. I grinned and said, "It feels like the wind off the lake, sharp and clean, but with a chill of what might have been." Christmas Day arrived, a purposeful break from the past. I got up early to volunteer at a soup kitchen, serving steaming broth to strangers who felt like family. Their appreciative smiles reflected my healing, a shared warmth that cost nothing but presence. By noon, my condo was bustling with my chosen family, Lauren and Sam Clara, my hiking group, and co-workers who had become friends. We shared a potluck feast with mismatched plates piled high with tamales, cornbread, and my own rosemary roasted potatoes. Clara raised a glass, saying to Olivia for building a table where we all belong. My eyes stung, but with gratitude rather than pain. That evening, Lauren and I swayed to a jazz quartet's soulful rendition of Winter Song, the music enveloping us in a cocoon of belonging. This was my Christmas, not a performance of duty, but a celebration of genuine ties. January 2026 stretched before me like a canvas of possibilities. And I leaned into my photography, capturing the pulse of Chicago frosted windows in Pilsen, kids sledding in Grant Park, and the midnight glow of the L train. I shared this milestone with my book club, and their cheers were louder than any family praise I'd sought. I also expanded my volunteer work mentoring teens at the financial literacy program, and their eager questions about saving, budgeting, and dreaming big reflected my own journey from obligation to empowerment. Tara, the single mother I'd helped, invited me to her son's birthday, a small backyard party with dollar store decorations and unending joy. And she hugged me, saying, "You gave me more than a budget. You gave me hope." "You've dismantled a system," she said. "This includes your family's entitlement and your role as their fixer. What do you want to build in its place?" In our monthly therapy sessions with Dr. Torres, we now address not only pain but also purpose. She smiled and said, "You're already building that. Look at your life now." I thought back to my early years when people measured love in monetary terms instead of cherishing shared moments. "I want relationships that breathe," I said. "Where love isn't a transaction, I'm enough as I am." My condo, which had once served as a stage for family demands, was now a place for quiet mornings, laughter, and art. My circle, Lauren, Clara, Sam, Tara, and my hiking crew, was a constellation of mutual respect, not extraction. In February, there was a slight reverberation from Madison. Lauren learned that Daniel had begun working with a counselor on a budget, Margaret joined a financial stress support group, and Ethan was promoted at the warehouse and was paying off debts. Their progress sparked a complex dance hope they'd find their way, pride in their steps, sorrow they'd needed my absence to take them, and I didn't reach out. Dr. Torres warned, "Their growth isn't your responsibility, Olivia. Let them walk their path. You walk yours." I nodded, concentrating on my own path. I enrolled in a writing workshop and began writing essays about healing and boundaries. My first piece, which was published in a local magazine, prompted emails from readers who had experienced similar betrayals. Their stories created a community I hadn't anticipated, a reminder that my pain wasn't mine alone. Chicago became green during the March thaw, and a parcel arrived at my PO as a last family gesture. A tiny wooden box without a note contained a memento from my childhood, a carved sparrow I'd created at a summer camp when I was 10 years old. Its wings were chipped but polished, and as I held it, memories flashed back: Daniel complimenting me on my work, Margaret putting it on a shelf, and Ethan joking that it was just a bird. Had they sent it as a farewell, a peace offering, or a ploy? While we were having coffee, I showed it to Clara and said, "What do you think that means?" She looked it over and said, "It's their gesture, not your responsibility. What do you want to do with it? It could be regret or guilt. Doesn't matter, Olivia." I kept it on my shelf to remember who I was and who I was becoming, not as a tether. April blossomed, and I celebrated my 35th birthday with my chosen family by my side. Lauren gave me a journal with a tree etched on the cover saying, "For your next chapter." Sam prepared a feast. Clara shared a poem about roots and wings, and my heart grew as I decided to stop looking for approval from people who had taken advantage of me. I wrote in the journal that night, naming my truth: I deserved love that didn't demand my depletion. I deserved a family that saw me, not my bank account, and I deserved to live unapologetically. Dr. Torres read my entry during our next session, and I hung it above my desk as a daily reminder of my value. Margaret's letter, which was not pleading but rather thoughtful, said, "I've started therapy. I see now how we leaned on you, how we hurt you. I'm sorry, Olivia. Not for money, but for us. If you're ever ready, I'd like to talk, no expectations." May's warmth surprised me. Was this sincere, or was it just a ploy? I told Dr. Torres. "It's a step," but she added, "But trust your instincts. You decide if and when to engage." I didn't respond, not yet, but the letter added to my evidence, and its tone gave me hope that maybe one day a relationship could develop based on respect rather than need. For now, I maintained my boundaries, allowing their change to happen naturally. The promise of summer lighting up Chicago's skyline greeted me as I stood on my balcony in June 2026, a year after Ethan's gallery visit. My life was no longer a response to the chaos in my family. Instead, it was a creation of my design. I had started a blog where I shared stories of boundaries and renewal, connected with strangers who felt like family, and my photography adorned gallery walls. Clara's words, "Family is who you choose. Olivia who chooses you back," reverberated. Family, I chose myself, first a radical act of love. Although the pain of estrangement remained, it had transformed into a quiet hum instead of a roar. I mourned the Harpers I'd wanted while also celebrating the Olivia I had become. I was craving the quiet of the forest and the clarity of the lake, so I planned a solo trip to the Upper Peninsula. I would bring my camera, journal, and my heart. The trip wasn't an escape, but a pilgrimage, an opportunity to meet myself again. I still loved my family, their faces flashing in quiet moments, but I loved myself more. I had discovered that boundaries weren't walls, but bridges to authenticity, that love didn't require sacrifice, but only presence. On my balcony, the sparrow carving caught the light, a symbol of flight rather than loss. I was soaring, my story no longer theirs to write, but mine to live, vibrant and true. If today's story resonated with you, don't hesitate to share your own experience in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to follow more journeys of resilience, recovery, and powerful transformation. Remember, sometimes the hardest roads we travel, the ones filled with setbacks and heartache, turn out to be the most meaningful journeys of our lives. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. I hope you too find the strength to turn your losses into stepping stones for a streak.